And lest we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. In our home country, slavery and Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Christ.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there he is, the devout Christian in the White House, speaking at the National Prayer Breakfast. And joining us now, best-selling author, former presidential candidate, former communications director for President Ronald Reagan, Patrick J. Buchanan. Hello, sir.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm well. Thank you for joining me again. I appreciate it. All right, so I guess in an effort to, I don't know, justify Muslim terrorism, he's bringing up the Crusades?
He's trying to give a moral equivalence for what happened in the 11th century to what's happening today. Astonishing. You know, and the whole idea of the Inquisition in Spain, I mean, these things are hundreds of years ago, as was the 30 Years' War long, long ago. And I can't think of any, you know, atrocities that have really been committed really in the name of Christ. And in the New Testament, there's no justification anywhere in all the books of the New Testament for any kind of violence on the scale of what we just saw with that pilot, Jordanian pilot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Why do you think he does? You know, I wonder, Pat, because there's another story. Last week he had a meeting with quote-unquote Muslim leaders, and reportedly the White House won't say who he met with. They say Muslim Brotherhood people were there, but the White House won't say. I wonder if they told him maybe, hey, you know what, a good point you could make, President Obama, is the Crusades.
I think the President of the United States has a real problem with the cold, hard truth and reality of our times, which is there is an element in the Islamic community worldwide which is awakened, which is embarked on a global crusade of its own to conquer Western countries, but first Arab and Muslim countries, and to impose upon them Sharia law, to expel the Christians, to expel the Jews, to expel the non-believers if they're Shia, and not part of what they consider the mainstream, and that they're using all manner of violence in order to achieve this, from Boko Haram, I mean, to ISIS, to Ansar al-Sharia, to Al-Qaeda. I mean, can the president not see the reality of his own time, that he's got to retreat centuries to find some sort of what he thinks might be a moral equivalence? And to call Jim Crow, I mean, which was a form of segregation of races, say that was rooted in Christianity, it seems to me is an absurdity and an injustice.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. All right, let's move on. You wrote a great piece about Putin and Russia, and of course, you know, Kerry's in Ukraine, and we're thinking of arming serious armaments to the Ukrainians to fight the rebels. But now there's talk that Putin has some kind of autism. He's socially inept, and that's why he does what he does. What's going to happen here with Russia and Ukraine?
Well, I think this is a tragedy, and it's bordering on a disaster. What we have, Steve, is we've got something like 5,300 dead Russians in what basically is a war of secession by two provinces in the far east, southeast of the country, that are seeking to secede and want closer ties with Russia. I think it'd be a terrible mistake for the United States to funnel weapons in there to the Kiev government, which would cause it to escalate the fighting. And Mr. Putin, any reading of the man will tell you he's not going to back down and run away when his 88% popularity is based on the fact he's standing up for Russians in Ukraine. So all you're going to do is extend, lengthen, and deepen this war. And I think the goal of the United States here is really where we ought to be an honest broker for peace, and where Mr. Obama maybe can earn that Nobel Prize he was given prematurely.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. All right, I want to go back to a story that we've been talking about as well prior to your arrival, sir, and that is Brian Williams. Let's listen to Brian Williams' apology, and then we'll get to exactly what it is he's apologizing for.
I made a mistake in recalling the events of 12 years ago. It did not take long to hear from some brave men and women in the air crews who were also in that desert. I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft.
I mean, Pat, he told the story on Letterman in 2013 in excruciating detail. He went to Madison Square Garden with a soldier who he said saved his life because the plane was hit by an RPG. That was last week. I mean, if he wasn't called out by this soldier who said, wait a minute, you weren't in that plane, what's with this guy?
I really don't know. I've liked Brian Williams. I think he's a good correspondent, a good anchor man, and he's not a deeply controversial individual. But I do not know how you can misremember the fact that you were in a helicopter that was not hit by a rocket-propelled grenade. I think that would be something you would remember quite clearly, and if it didn't happen, how do you remember it? So I think he's got, I think it's very damaging to his credibility, undeniably.
Yeah, should he be reprimanded by NBC?
Well, as I've been reprimanded.
I know, that's why I'm asking you. I mean, is this worse than anything?
I'm not going to get into the internal affairs of my former company, but NBC was not so much the company as MSNBC was.
Yeah, all right. And, you know, he's not alone because, remember, Hillary, she was under sniper fire in Bosnia. Wrong.
Yeah, right on the airport. She was ducking
right.
sniper.
And wait a minute. And Dick Blumenthal served in Vietnam. Wrong. I mean, these people are just, I mean, I used to play third base for the Yankees, you know? I don't get it anymore. Let me ask you a question.
And I fought Willie Pep as a kid.
Hey, Pat, one more. We got a minute. Some Democrats are saying they're going to skip Netanyahu's speech before Congress. Right move?
No. I mean, I disagree with what Boehner did, and I disagreed with what the Prime Minister did. I think it's a mistake to come over here and Boehner to give him time to criticize the foreign policy of the President of the United States in the same forum as the State of the Union. But I don't think we want to compound it. I mean, I think folks in the Congress of the United States, if they're there, they ought to go and hear the speech.
Yeah, okay, good enough. Pat, always great to talk to you. Really enjoy it. Thank you, sir.
You take it easy.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Patrick J. Buchanan, ladies and gentlemen. Very interesting. Yeah, I don't doubt that he might have had a fight with him when he was a kid. You know, he was a tough cookie. Still a tough cookie, but it's always great to talk to Pat Buchanan. When we come back, boy, do we have a lot to talk about. All these issues and more with the very, 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 very much in demand Malzberg panel. Who is it today? You'll see. Don't go away.